exaggerate and sir, hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to know
hands off.
specifically how many of our ICE agents have been docked or
On the ground. On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
A now viral video of California Senator Alex Padilla being forcefully removed from a press conference and, as you see, being handcuffed. It's now making waves across the country. The moment came just moments after Padilla tried to speak up about immigration raids that have led to protests in California and elsewhere. That press conference was being held by Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, who has defended the Trump administration's handling of the immigration situation.
Democratic lawmakers have criticized the arrest, saying that it was an attack on democracy. Meantime, the Department of Homeland Security said that Padilla chose disrespectful political theater and interrupted a live press conference. And they claimed that Padilla did not identify himself. We heard in the video that he did. And they said that Secret Service believed him to be an attacker.
All right, we are joined by Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, good morning.
Good morning.
Woo! This is a lot. Whether some people think it's political theater, he's got a right to come in. Let's talk about what he did. Maybe the way he did it could be, yes or no, you could agree with. Is it legal what he did?
It depends. I mean, that location, I want to say that's in some type of headquarters, some type of location. What I read is that he was there already for some other event. So folks in the building would have already knew who he was. That's the part about this entire press release that I don't like. If you read the article that when this originally came out, it says he was there. He heard she was having a press conference and said, hey, I'm going to go down there. If he's already got clearance to get into a building, if he's already been in the building, you know who this guy is. It wasn't like he was some random walking around. He was there because he was some U.S. Congress member talking to them about something else. But even if you set that aside, if he wasn't there, if he just showed up and somehow got into the secure building that he's not supposed to be, at some point he did identify himself. And so did that word de-escalation is lost lately with all these law enforcement encounters, and this is one of them. This situation obviously may not have been the best opportunity for him to address his grievances or to speak on behalf of his constituents as if he was attempting to do. But at some point, he was there. He did say who he was. Those individuals at that moment didn't want to hear anything else. Regardless if they thought he was a threat or believed he was a threat, he was going down to the ground and they were taking him all the way. I mean, at some point he was backing up, then he went back forward, then he backed up again and he realized, hey, I'm going against five guys. I'm not winning this portion. I need to go ahead and back up. My question and concern is, where's his staff? Where are his folks? Also letting them know, hey, he is a Congress member and this is what he's attempting to do. But even if I remove that part, if he's not a Congress member, if he's just an American citizen there attempting to speak, is that how we are quelling and quenching and chilling speech? Are we saying that we don't want your voice to be heard? Yes, there's a chance and an opportunity to speak, but I'm not sure if that's the location, but I'm also not sure if that's how we want to stop speech, like by forcefully, confronting it.
Well, so we should note that the two, Kristi Noem and Senator Padilla, did have a conversation after the fact, once the tensions had kind of, boiled down there. But a lot of people are wondering, this is an elected official, and there should be that conversation. Do elected officials have more rights than someone like you or me if we wanted to go in there and also ask questions?
I don't think they have more rights for speech, but I do think they have more rights for access. Like I talk about it a lot here, time, place, and manner. Do you have you can speak, but you can't speak here. You can speak here, but you can't speak today. Maybe you can speak tomorrow. They're given an ability to go in places that we can't go into. Obviously, like if they're going into a detention center, I just can't walk up and say, I want to come and examine this. But because they're a member of Congress and they have oversight, they can go in there and examine that to ensure that the public funds are being used in an appropriate manner. So they do have a heightened access. But now in terms of a heightened speech, I don't think so. I believe they have the same rights that you or I would have, and being able to speak in or when you can speak can be managed. So the proper way to have done this would have been to communicate with her staff, let her know that you wanted to come there and have a conversation about this. Her staff probably would have summarily rejected it or laughed at you. And so part of it is political theater. Part of it is, I want that confrontation. But I would expect more out of law enforcement, specifically knowing who the individual was, not to give him some, secondary type of justice, but just to ensure that you don't have this theater lighten it, to give more fire to it. You know, you could pour gasoline on it or you could pour water on it. A situation like that would have been, all right, let him ask his question, let him say what he wants to say, and then move on with the press conference. But I anticipate that he didn't want that and they didn't want that. And so both folks got exactly what they wanted.
Well, and we know with social media, Khalif, had he done the political, you know, let's take these steps and I'll wait outside and I'll ask a question, the video never would have gone viral. This is what people want to see. And so once the dust settles and the video, you know, is not trending as much as it is right now, we saw him being handcuffed. Will this go away? Is there anything that sticks past today?
I don't even know what the type of charge could have been. I mean, he's not trespassing because he was lawfully there.
Okay.
If he were asked to be detained, they didn't even give him, removed, they didn't give him an opportunity to remove himself. So any type of potential charge, I don't know what it could be. Trespass is the only one, and he had a right and an obligation to be there.
All right, Khalif, thank you so much for taking a look at that video for us this morning.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.